live on Facebook. Hello everybody on Facebook. Sorry we can't zoom in, so I'm tiny. I'm trying to look tiny. We'll start in just about a moment. But I wanted to just say hello to everyone on Facebook. Everyone say hi.
Hi.
See, there's people here, it's not just me. Well, the last Monday night workshop. Did you guys stop and look at the video? Wasn't that funny? There was like no, it's all just empty seats.
Yeah,
I'm talking to
except I
empty
saw his
seats.
head.
And
he says,
I hear little voices. It really wasn't me being a ventriloquist.
I was checking.
I saw you.
You saw me
I
actually?
saw you join.
That's why he wanted you to sit here, so that there would be a person right here. So
No, you saw me actually watching you live.
oh, right now, because you're on?
Yeah, I turned it off. I turned it off.
Actually, you should do that. It'll make our ratings up more. Everyone go on Facebook right now.
Mark it on my-
That's good. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. One of these days I'm going to get that right. So good evening, everyone. Tonight, welcome to another Monday Night Workshop. We just finished an Omega 2 last night, which is why I'm so exhausted right now, because they were such difficult people. I can say that because they're not here. It was a long weekend, but a good weekend. Really love doing Omega 2s. They really are my favorite program. And then, of course, thank you to the staff. They always make it fun-ish. I want to just quickly go through our schedule, if I can recall from saying this last night. The next program that we have is Satsang, which is in May.
May 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th.
May 11th, 12th, 13th, 17th. The second to the last Omega one that we do this year. We're kind of limited, obviously, with the dates of the Franciscan. So those are the two up and coming. I have been considering doing, we used to do 2 Monday night workshops a month, and I've been thinking about restarting that back up again, but the second one, instead of doing it on a Monday, I'm thinking of doing it on a Wednesday for some people who can't make Mondays. So I still would have 2 different topics. I'd do one on Monday, so it would be the first Monday of the month would be the Omega 1, the first Monday would be one Monday night workshop, and the third Wednesday would be the second workshop of the month. So that's something I'm considering doing. I think I might start that up in May, possibly, because April's already here. And then, obviously, you know, we're on Facebook now, so we're live on Facebook. Hopefully this will catch on, which is an easy enough thing to do. So hello to people in New York. Not that I know you're watching, but I do. And anyone else across the country, thank you. Hello. And then, of course, we're working on trying to keep the YouTube up and running as well, keeping that going. So tonight's Monday night. Oh, and then, of course, everyone knows that I've been doing book recommendations. So this month, our book recommendation, I'm actually going to introduce it tonight. I'll do another video tomorrow. The book recommendation is called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. This is actually an old book. It's from 1997. But I am of the opinion that the old books probably have the best information because it's so simple. Everything is just rewritten anyway. So I remember when I read this back in the 90s. I've read this several times. So I've just reread it again. It's fun. And of course I'm incorporating in this tonight's Monday night workshop as well. But this is the book for the month of April. This is what I would recommend. If you haven't read it, it's a good read. If you have read it, I think it's a good reminder to read it again. It's only 138 pages and it's a small book. The type's pretty big too. I like simple little books. And of course, you know, when it comes to the teachings and stuff, a lot of the information is easy to read, but hard to apply. And I really like the application of these four. And I like his writings as well. He's got several other books too. It's funny because I get him confused with Carlos Castaneda, because Carlos Castaneda's teacher was Don Miguel, I think it was, right? And this is Don Miguel Ruiz, so it's easy to get them confused. But anyway, so that's my book that I would recommend for this month of April. Now, tonight's topic, how does one deal with a difficult person? When I was sitting here thinking about it, not here, but when I was sitting here thinking of it, I really am tired. I'm just going to say that. I'm just tired. When I was sitting in my office today thinking about the workshop, it reminded me that last month we talked about finding peace in chaos. and how when it's very chaotic, how do we find ourselves stable and peaceful. This relates a great deal to it as well, finding when you're in front of a difficult person, how do you find yourself in a peaceful state, especially if it's someone that you love. That's what really got me thinking about this. Politics and families being torn apart now, friends not talking to friends anymore, how can you be for that person? And so I thought, with all the turmoil that's occurring in the country and around the world, it would be a good topic on how you deal with a difficult person. The first thing we have to think of, what makes a person difficult? So what I perceive to be difficult may not be difficult, and what you perceive to be difficult may not be difficult for me. I'm often called a difficult person. I don't think I'm difficult at all. I think I'm quite amicable. Everyone likes me. So how do we define what a difficult person is? So tell me, give me some things. What would you consider a difficult person?
Rude.
Rude. I heard rude.
A person who doesn't listen.
A person who doesn't listen. Someone rude doesn't listen. What else?
I had a customer who wanted something for almost free.
So demanding something for nothing.
Unreasonable.
Unreasonable is great.
Pushy.
Pushy, someone who's pushy.
Overblown ego.
An overblown ego, that's good.
Close-minded.
Close-minded. Anyone else?
Stubborn.
What was it?
Stubborn.
Stubborn. Stubborn is a great one as well.
Argumentative.
Argumentative is wonderful. You guys are defining
Negative.
Negative. Negative. Yes, sir, I know you would.
Somebody that ignores you.
Somebody who ignores me. All right. So,
Antagonistic.
antagonistic was great. I was just going to think about a child who throws a temper tantrum. That could be considered quite difficult. So,
Mark and I know one of those.
if we think of kids, sometimes it might give us good characteristics, like they're screaming and yelling and shouting. They want it their way. They don't care what you say. They don't care what you do. They don't even care what the consequences. It's just what they want. I saw this adorable little video the other day. It was this little boy who was at a river, and he had this big fish in his hand. And he's wanting to leave, and his dad's saying, nope, throw it back. And he's like, I don't want to. And he's like, you have to throw it back. I want to keep him. He's maybe 3 or 4. He was really adorable. And the dad's like, you can't keep him. He's going to be stinky. No, he won't. Well, what do you do when you get home? Put him in my toy box. So as the whole thing unfolded, I watched because I wanted to see what was eventually going to happen. And it just kept going on. And then the video ended. So I don't know if he ever threw it back or actually took it home, but the poor kid, like crying and snot's coming out, I want my fish! Now as an adult, we look at that and we think, that's absolutely ridiculous. But from the little child's perspective, it's what he wanted. He caught it and he wanted it. He didn't understand the fish is gonna die and it's gonna get stinky. He didn't understand that it's gonna start to decay. Like he didn't understand, he didn't care. All he wanted was his fish right then and there. So when we have people who are difficult, one good characteristic is there's a misunderstanding. I'm coming from one position and you're coming from another. And in that video, it was a really good illustration. That little boy didn't care what his parents said, didn't care of the consequences. We're gonna leave you here. I don't care, I want my fish. Like he wasn't even thinking, logistically, if my parents leave me here, how am I going to get home? And like he didn't care. It was just about what he wanted. So he was really fighting for his position. That to me is the epitome of a difficult person. Someone who fights for their position. Now, when I was thinking of this in the beginning, there's a quote that I came across a few weeks ago. It's from Lao Tse. It says, respond intelligently even to unintelligent treatment. And I thought, that's an actual beautiful quote, especially because I see so much unintelligent things nowadays. I just scratch my head and think, what were you thinking? And then obviously the answer is they weren't thinking. But to respond intelligently to an unintelligent treatment is truly a beautiful way to live. If I can be intelligent, even if you're reacting, throwing a temper tantrum, then naturally I wouldn't find you difficult. I would actually find you maybe challenging, or maybe we could say disagreeable, but something I could work with, as opposed to two forces that are just slamming together. So when I was thinking of the forces, we used to talk about the three forces that pretty much are in existence in everything that we do. First force is when I intend to do something, so it's my initiation. All of us have an initiation force. From the moment we wake up until we go to sleep, we're initiating things, whether it's brushing our teeth, getting dressed, making a meal, cleaning up. There's always a force of starting or initiating. Then, what we typically experience is a second force. This is a force that's going to oppose it. For example, if I'm wanting to clean the kitchen, my son comes home and decides he wants to chat for a while and drag his dirty feet through the floor and drop his bag anywhere he wants to, and opens the refrigerator and just starts leaving things all over. Not that he's a pig, he's a teenager, so that's all I need to say. So when that happens, my first thought is, okay, what's more important, cleaning or talking to my son? I'd rather talk to my son. So, okay, I know the years are going to be soon, he's not going to want to have conversations with me, so let's have that. So that's a second force. So second force doesn't have to really be angry, it's just something that detracts us from our initiating force. Second force could be, I'm wanting to go for a bike ride, migraine. So my initiation, I want to go for a bike ride, and all of a sudden here comes a migraine. I'm not getting on a bike when I have a migraine. That's not going to happen. So sometimes second force are things that I perceive or can't perceive are going to happen. I can prepare for migraines the best of my ability, but sometimes they just come. I can prepare for a surprise visit, but to the best of my ability, it'll happen when it happens. So second force could be something violent, like a car accident. If I'm driving on the road and here comes a car accident, the second force could be something as easy as me losing my willpower and going to get a Starbucks, which I haven't done yet. But that could be second force. That's the craving inside of me is so much greater than my initiating force that I give in. The reason why I'm talking about first force, second force, because that's what it's like dealing with a difficult individual. I'm wanting one way, the other ones want the other way. And typically when we have this, it's kind of an annihilation. Like if I have a +3 and I add it to a -3, what do I end up with? 0. It's a 0. So they actually annihilate each other out. So if I've got one force trying to do one and another one doing the other one, they annihilate each other out. I used to play this video, the Zax from Dr. Seuss. Has anyone ever said this? It's the north-going Zax and the south-going Zax. And the north-going Zax only goes north, and the south-going Zax only goes south. And one day, the south-going Zax and the north-going Zax ran into each other right into their tracks. Neither to the step to the right or the step to the left. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but that's how it goes.
I was impressed.
So neither one of them will step to the side. I don't really know it by heart, it just sounded good. But so the law is the north-going Zax neither goes south or west or east. It just stays true to north. The south-going Zax never goes north or south or east, whatever. You get the point. So nobody would move, and the two of them stood toe to toe, not budging. And then as the cartoon evolved, snow, rain, winter, they're all standing there. It's funny how they weren't portrayed as loving little people. They were like, and they're standing there looking at each other. And then the city evolves, and eventually it ends with the whole entire city and metropolis around them, and they're still standing there like this, like they're not going to move. But the world moved on without them. That's a good illustration of a difficult person, when you can get to it and nobody is going to budge. Now, dealing with difficult people has a variety of challenges. If it's somebody that you truly care about, it's the most difficult. If it's somebody you don't really care about, it's a little bit easier to deal with. Dealing with a difficult client or customer, yeah, they're difficult, but they're going to go. You don't really ever have to see them again, unless they're a frequent customer. Dealing with a loved one, a son, a daughter, a husband, a wife, a spouse, any relationship, father, mother, you know you're going to see them again. So that's a bit more of a challenge. What happens when it comes to people that we're emotionally attached to, our emotions flare up quite quickly. Because family members can push our buttons. They know how to say one word, give one look, and off we go. So that's where the difficulty lies. So then I thought a good spin on it. The difficulty with a difficult person is really with the difficulty within me. Because I'm going to lose focus. I lose my center. I lose my emotional intelligence, and I just go, rah! say one thing and that's it. It all goes. Call me fat and we got World War III going on. But I'm just using that as an illustration. But we know there's certain words that we can say. There's a certain look that we can do. Those of us who are parents, you know this. All you got to do is look at your kid and they, sorry. You don't even have to do anything. You just have to do that look. Just a look like, or maybe I'll do a little, and that's it. They get it. So when it comes to the people that we love, this is where we experience difficulty within ourselves. So I guess then the appropriate thing would be, how do I address the difficulty within me when I'm dealing with a difficult person? So with that, I'd like you all to just chat with each other and come up with a solution. How do you deal with the difficulty within me when you're dealing with a difficult person? Go ahead, please.
You start. You start. No, I'm leaving the group. You start. You go.
So I think it's to look at the other person and try to understand what this person is going through. Maybe this person had a
Well, it depends on who the difficult person is.
has some good experiences, or you just space.
That's not,
Try to understand how communication
that's not, it's
not
more difficult.
our own ego.
And if somebody you don't really like, somebody you don't really like is unfriendly. You know, Susan,
Instead of saying something mean,
What was it called?
she
saying
hasn't been real difficult.
Oh. Oh, okay.
positive, or like,
She hasn't done it.
you know, like, oh, you're a great person, you know, instead of like reacting.
If I can't get it, then I go home and
That's the hard one. Reacting to events outside yourself. I was practicing. Remember, I was practicing that, reacting,
Or
not
like,
reacting
I
to events
guess I
outside
could
myself.
just be like, okay,
Yeah,
I can't have this conversation.
That was a good thought.
I just can't.
For those
And then I can like shoot for it
It is
right now, and if we continue, this isn't gonna be great.
Or overreacting. Very difficult.
Yeah,
Especially
exactly.
when dealing with Republicans. That was just a joke. But true.
Really bad.
I mean,
And then
Gene Baker.
it'll be.
All right, if I can have your attention, please. I just want to interrupt quickly and keep us going along our path here. When it comes to difficult people, as we said, the difficulty lies within me. If everyone is a mirror for us, as it is said throughout history, everyone appears to be a mirror. So if I'm looking at a difficult person, that's just a good awareness to show me the reflection that there are times that I am difficult as well, and not to take offense naturally at it. And of course, as I've already alluded, when it's somebody that I'm close to or relationship, I'm going to be more touchy and less forgiving and accepting. Except when it comes to kids. Somehow with kids and animals, we're far more forgiving and gentle when it comes to our animals than it is when it comes to anybody else that's difficult. We have these two stray cats in our, well, they're not stray anymore. We have these two outdoor cats in our backyard now. And one of them keeps trying to steal the food from the other one. Now, I'm very kind and no, that's so I'm trying to find ways, but put two human beings in front of me and someone tries to steal my food, especially if I'm starving and it's chocolate, it ain't happening. So we're a little bit, again, I'll speak for me. I'm more compassionate to animals and children than I would be with an adult because I have a greater expectation. I would have an expectation that you have a conscience and your own awareness, and stealing is not only just against the law, it's against a grain within us. It's not something we would do. Again, it's all based on an expectation. So, the question was, how do I deal with a difficult person? How do I deal with my own difficulty when I'm dealing with another difficult individual? The first thing I have to do is recognize that means I'm out of balance. We are multidimensional human beings, physical, emotional, mental, and naturally, of course, I'll just lump spiritual together. If I'm out of balance on any one of those areas, it's actually going to affect all of the areas. I'm exhausted today, so being exhausted, physically exhausted, my brain is fuzzy. And my emotions, I'm a little bit more touchy, is the word I would use politely. I'm a little bit more touchy because I'm exhausted. Now, if I was having an emotional upset, I would end up being physically drained as well, and my mind would not be really fuzzy, but it would be single focused on that event, and I'd keep running it over and over and over again, increasing the agitation. If my mind was exhausted, let's say I was cramming for a test or something, I'm going to feel physically exhausted as well, and emotionally, same thing, I'm touchy. So all three of them affect all three levels. Therefore, it would behoove us to be balanced physically, emotionally, and mentally. Now, it's very easy for us to understand physical balance. Most of us get this. Physical balance, exercise, that's what we do. We go out, we exercise, we push our body to our limits, we make sure that we're sweating and get the heart pumping. We get our heart pumping, we get our lungs in and out, exhaling, get all of our systems engaged, and that balances us out physically a little bit more. Eating, naturally, we feed the body, and hopefully we feed it healthy food so that it's maintaining a very good, healthy digestive system. And then sleep, we need to have rest. Those are the three main things. Physical, we have to exercise, eat well, and sleep well. Now there's so many debates on the studies of sleep. I don't really want to get into the whole idea. 8 hours is the recommended, but not everybody's designed for 8 hours, so I'm not really someone who likes to do recommendations. I always think what works best for you. 5 to 6 hours works good for me. I know that there's some people that will sleep for 3 hours, wake up and work in the middle of the night, and then go back to sleep again for another 2 or 3 hours, having a broken sleep. There's the theory you should have a deep, solid sleep, and some people try to maintain the, pardon me, excuse me if I don't remember the levels, but right below the REM, right below it, instead of going deep, or above it, excuse me, right above the REM is what they try to do. Instead of going deep, they try to stay at that subconscious level, but not dreaming. Anyway, I don't have a philosophy on what the idea of sleep is. Your body, you should know it. The older I get, the more sleep I crave. It's all I know. Because I probably am not having enough Starbucks in my life. It's affecting my sleep pattern. Anyway, so we understand then feeding, exercising, and resting our physical body. Well then, how do we feed, exercise, and rest our emotions? Because that is part of the balance. Well, it's a little bit trickier to talk about the 3 levels of what we balance for our emotions. So just as we put our physical body into exercise, a lot of that is resistance, like lifting weights, you're increasing it to help develop the muscles. What kind of resistance can we do emotionally? That would be a good question. Well, if you think about the word resistance, that which I resist. So emotionally, if I wanted to exercise my emotions, I would start engaging in the idea of things I would resist. For example, we talk about unconditional love. Love the unlovable, give to the undeserving, and forgive the unforgivable. That certainly would exercise my emotions. If I learn to embrace something that I considered embraceable, not worthy of my embrace, then that would be a good exercise for me. I particularly like the idea of volunteering here. I think that would be a great place to help exercise emotions, but volunteer at a place that you would cringe at, like going to, perhaps maybe if you have an issue with people who abuse their animals, go to an animal shelter and learn to love those animals that other people reject, but do not judge the people who abuse them. That would be a good exercise. Go to a halfway house and help with people there, but do not judge the addict and the drug addicts or the alcoholics. To remain judge-free. That's the idea of exercising my emotions, challenging my judgments and not reacting with, ugh, but to find the value in them. Help the homeless. So there's many different places that we can go to exercise our emotions by resisting, going into the things that we resist. And then of course, naturally it's important to rest our emotion. Oh, rest is another thing. So that's exercising and feeding. So feeding would be experiencing the love. But the rest for our emotions, this one's an easy one. Walking around in nature. Those of you who've ever had this experience, go outside, take a walk. You don't have to exercise when you're out there, just walk. A nice leisurely walk outside in the air with the sun shining, with the wind blowing. Hopefully in Arizona you take your water with you because it's hot out there. But the idea is to be outside in nature. Nature is very rejuvenating and it relaxes our emotions. If you've ever had that experience when you're tense, you'll realize that your natural inclination is to go outside, to get out of where you are in a little inside box, change the energy, and just step outside. Even the fact that if you're in an office and you step outside, away from the smokers, but step outside somewhere, it's very rejuvenating and relaxing. I saw a little clip today about one of the cleanest places in India, and what they do is they recycle everything, and so they go and collect all of the leaves and flowers that have blown away. They go and collect all of that, and they use that for mulch, and for also the recycling for growing plants. And what is that called that you put in the ground? I want to say manure, but that's not it. What was it?
Compost.
Compost, thank you. So that they would do that as well. And they're outside a lot. And the place is beautiful. There's beautiful flowers and plants, and they're outside walking a great deal too. I remember Michael J. Fox one time was traveling around looking for the happiest place on the planet to help alleviate his Parkinson's. And it was a place up in Tibet, up in the mountains. It was a little village up in the mountains. And people would joke, it's the high altitude, that's why they're so happy. But it wasn't. I mean, truly, the people were outside a great deal. There was no locks on the doors. Everyone was quite friendly and open, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. And if I remember correctly, he felt as if his Parkinson's had either slowed down or almost diminished the symptoms while he was there. Again, I just attribute this to being outside a great deal. I mean, look at Tarzan. He was happy all the time, wasn't he? Just kidding. All right, so that's our emotions. Now, to balance our mental level, this could be a little bit more challenging. Feeding our minds is simple. That's easy. Pick up a book. Just pick up a book and that'll feed your mind. Reading is a beautiful thing. I love reading, have always loved reading. I'm very happy to see and hear that reading is coming back, that there's a lot more people that are pushing the reading. Of course, Bill Gates is a big reader. Stephen Jobs is a good reader. Warren Buffett. The big names that we say are people that read. So they're really making the push back to get people to read again, which I think is great. What we read is also important as well. So feeding my mind, read. Exercising my mind, read things that challenge me. So if you happen to be somebody who doesn't believe in, I still want to stay away from politics, but it's easy. I mean, if you're a Republican, go read the Democratic stuff. If you're a Democratic, go read the Republican stuff and stretch your mind. That's really what it's about. Read things that are not just interesting to you. If you really want to stretch yourself, read a technical journal. That'll do it for you, because then it puts you to sleep and then you get rest. And that's beneficial. That's what we want. We want to be able to have rest. But it is true. If you find something that's challenging to read, that helps expand. Now I have a whole, we have such a huge library, but I have this library of many of the ancient texts in these little books. They're called the Little Books of Wisdom. So I was looking at them today. It's like the Kabbalah and the Quran and the Gnostic Bibles, and so they're all and they're this big, but they're like that big, and the print is like 0.3. I mean, it's so tiny because they tried to make it into a little book. The Upanishads, I can never say that right, but I picked that one up today, and at first I was like, oh man, I'm old, so I needed my glasses, but it's so much in there, it's so condensed. And I had started reading these for a while, and then I put them because it was too heavy. That's when I had a conversation with George, and he said, some books aren't meant to be read from cover to cover. They're just meant to be open and read a passage at a time, and you digest them. And I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And that's what I started doing with those books. I just, ever since I moved, I haven't picked them up again. I saw them today, and I thought, oh, I should start doing that maybe once a week, picking up another one of those and just read a little passage out of it. And then just mull over that, because some of that stuff is so deep. Has anybody ever tried to read Socrates or Aristotle or any? That's a challenge.
I made the mistake of taking that as the only thing to read to a cabin.
Oh yeah, that's a challenge.
And I ended up leaving probably 5 times the amount of firewood as when I got there. Yeah, I came away feeling so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Shakespeare did that too.
dictionary, like I have Manly P. Hall, most people know that's my favorite author, and there's a book that I was reading, and I literally couldn't get through 2 or 3 sentences before I had to get the dictionary and say, what is that word? And I started a notebook of words that I had to look up in his book, because then I found out ended up looking up the same word, because he would, and then I'd look, did I look up this word yet? What did that mean again? And it took me 4 times as long to read his material, because I had to keep stopping. But you know what? I really enjoyed it, because that's where I came up with the word polymath. And I came up with a whole workshop about the word polymath, which was a great, I loved that topic, polymath, which, by the way, means somebody who excels in more than one area. So Aristotle, Socrates, the guy with the stars, Galileo, all of them were polymaths. They excelled in more than just the area of astrology or anatomy, biology. Walter Russell was the reason why I brought that up. He was an architect and a sculptor and a philosopher. He bred horses. He also was a poet. He wrote poetry and a mathematician and an engineer.
Started co-ops and designed a large part in New York.
Yes, he did. I ran into a building that I literally ran into a building. I'm not kidding. I turned a boot, hit the wall. There was a plaque right there, and it said designed by Walter Russell. I wasn't paying attention. I was talking to my friend. We were just talking, and I tripped and ran. And those of you know me, I stumble a great deal now. And I ran into the wall, and I backed up, and the plaque was right there. We all laughed. We're like, he pushed me into the wall. But it was. He's made great contribution. That's a polymath. Anyway, so that's where I learned, by using the dictionary. I love the dictionary. George loved the dictionary, and he's the one who got me really loving the dictionary. Unfortunately, it's hard to find now because you have to go online. So I'm used to the dictionary that if you're looking for the word to spell the word, you could go through an E-E-E-A, and what you're looking for. But now if you go online, there's no way you to look through it. You kind of just have to do 4 or 5 different ways to try to figure out how to get a word, because there's no, so I still have an old dictionary. As a matter of fact, I was going to go to the library and see if I can find one of the latest ones that they have.
I've got one he gave me because he had to teach me how to use it. I'm serious, because I would get intimidated and think, I'd look up a word and I think I'd have to digest pronunciation, where it came from, and he went, just get the meaning of the word. Is that what you wanted? Yeah. Just trying to figure out how to say, yeah, well, then just go for that. And that was how he later taught me how to read books too.
But then you have like more than one definition. Well, which is the right one then?
That part I was able to handle, but it was like I was trying to get down the Greek and the
Yes.
and he was like, no,
No, you don't need any of that.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do, because I don't know how to pronounce a name or a word, so I'll just look at the pronunciation. But now all you have to do is say it into Siri and she'll do it for you. If you say it correctly, and she'll say it
She
back.
can't say gyre.
No, she can't. It doesn't. It's gear.
Yeah.
Anyway, and my name is Aunt Marie. Anyway, that's the mental part. So challenging ourselves, that's how you expand. And then, of course, resting our mind. The best way to rest our mind is through meditation. You don't want to put it to sleep, because even in sleep, our mind is working. Those of you who have dreams, it's constantly going as well. But when we go into meditation, what we really are doing is resting the and we're just bringing it right to a place. Even if you do transcendental meditation where you're just focusing on a mantra or a word or a color or a thought, or if you do a guided visualization, all of that focuses your mind and rests it, so it's not bouncing here and there and learning to in meditation, what you're doing is learning to control your mind. That's really what the art of meditation is. It's to control my thinking and to be able to direct and focus where I want to go. If I can control my thinking and direct and focus where I want to go, then I would have no need to get upset or agitated with whoever's in front of me, because I can control my thinking. So if someone's having an upset, I can sit there and think, well, do I want to get upset with this person or don't? Most of the time I get upset because I'm not controlling my thinking. I'm coming from emotion. You said you love me, and then off we go. So when it comes to the idea of dealing with difficulties, I would surmise that the difficulty lies in my inability to control my thinking and to allow my emotions to run rampant. Because the thinking controls the emotions, and our body just follows along. If you remember the 3 that we do, the physical, emotional, mental, the body's the lowest, my emotion's the next highest, and the mental's the highest. Of course, naturally, then it leaps us over towards intuition and the spiritual side, but that, I don't think we need to train. I think we just need to let that come through. So, once I learn how to manage to balance these three things, then I should be able to remain calm in front of a difficult individual. Now, I did go to the dictionary to define what the word difficult means. Here's a few of the definitions. Something that is hard to understand or do, and is a person that is hard to get along with. So something that's hard to understand or do, and a person that's hard to get along with. So the thing that I thought of for something that's hard to do, the Rubik's Cube. Do you remember that annoying thing? So that cube with the colors, the red, the yellow, the white, the blue, and the green, and they all had to be the same. I never figured it out. And I can't tell you how many times I threw it. And then I'd get upset when somebody would sit next to me and they'd be like, oh yeah. I always ended up with the white in the middle on one side, and then a one yellow square on the red plane. That was very hard. Now, obviously that was an exercise designed to help my cognitive thinking, and apparently I didn't really care about developing that aspect of me, so I didn't do. That to me would consider to be difficult. Another difficult thing would be for me to try to do something physically that I couldn't do. For me to try to jump 15 feet in the air. I can't jump 15. I can practice, and then of course I know some of you have heard us talk about the American Ninja Warriors. Love that. I love watching those people. I just realized that's a reality show, isn't it? Is that a reality show?
It is.
Is it considered a reality? Then I can't say I've never seen a reality show because I do watch the American Ninja Warrior every once in a while. Anyway, that warp wall that they have to run up, that wall at first started at 6 feet, then it went to 10 feet, then it went to 12 feet, and I think it's up to 15 feet now, I'm not sure. I look at that and think there's no way I'm gonna get up that. That would be difficult. Well, what am I thinking? The warp wall is at the end. I wouldn't even make it through the first series of obstacles that they have. But that's a good, difficult challenge. Now, we can look at that. Does everybody know what I'm talking about, the American Ninja Warrior? It's a series of obstacles that people have to go through. They're very challenging. So the first one is you have to jump from one platform to the next, thing, kind of like dominoes, but they're 5 feet apart. And so you have to be skilled at being able to get across it. And then you hang from things and use your fingers, and if you fall into the water. Anyway, that's considered difficult. But the challenge is rewarding. Like, once you overcome it, you make it to the end. I've never seen anybody get to the end and hit the buzzer and go, darn. I mean, most of them hit them like, I did it! And they're all so excited because we've overcome challenges. That's why challenges are really good for us. They help us overcome, to acquire and skill, be more proficient at something that we're doing. All of that comes through difficulty. All of that comes through difficulty. So the second the second definition is hard to do, make, manage, understand, requiring an extra effort, skill, or thought. That's the Rubik's Cube. The third one, having or characterized by difficulties or troubles, like it's a difficult time. The economy's in a difficult position. My house is in a difficult, desperate need for repair or reorganization. Like it's a difficult, troubling, something that's troubling. And then the last one is hard to satisfy, persuade, or please.
My client.
Your client, thank you, because I was going to refer to people I don't want to really talk about on Facebook. Not you. Anyway, so your client, right? So when you have a difficult person, they're hard to please. They're very demanding and commanding, and I expect this, and this is the way it should be, and snappy. And I do have a client right now who is dealing with a difficult individual. And sometimes money makes people feel like they have the entitlement to bestow terror on those who are of service to them. So this very wealthy individual is continually discounting and disregarding. And the other day I heard the comment where she said, tell it to somebody who cares, and hung up the phone. While this person was trying to explain a situation, she just literally interrupted and said, tell it to someone who cares, and hung up the phone. And that was where I was working with my client, not taking things personal. But sometimes people of wealth or stature think that they have the right to be dismissive and rude, and you should do what I'm saying because I have all this money or because I have all this power. We equate power and money with arrogance, and unfortunately, not everybody does. That was a blanket statement I want to withdraw. There are many wealthy people that I know that are not arrogant and dismissive. They're quite beautiful individuals. There are some people that use power and money as a way to be rude and disrespectful because they think I have the money, you should be doing what I want you to do. Not so. Money doesn't buy everything, power doesn't buy everything. It mostly comes from, I think, difficulty comes from people who want their way and they're not willing to budge. Could be people who are injured or harmed and they're wanting to lash out. People who maybe never had anything before, now they do and they're not gonna give it up. It could be fear-based. Some people could be angry and that's why they're difficult, because they're angry. You might have an individual who just got dumped and now they come into your store or into your face and they're gonna take it out on everybody that they've met. So again, instability is what I would recommend or say. When we often label a person or a situation difficult because we don't understand them or we don't want to understand them. I know that happens too. There are times when I really, just like that woman said, tell it to somebody else. There are times when I don't want to understand because I'm so overwhelmed and so beside myself that somebody would say or do something. I don't want to hear the explanation. Just move, please, and go away is what I would want to do. Now, I'm not saying this happened often, but there have been times in my life where I've been confronted with a difficult individual and I didn't care to understand them. Just what you do is so irreprehensible. Is that the correct word?
Irreprehensible.
Yes, that. Disrespectful, that I am just completely floored that you would do something like that. We're done. And I'm done. I don't want to understand. I'm done. And then there have been other times when I have truly experienced shock, betrayal, and just like, what? But I've worked through it and did have understanding and acceptance. And okay, what do we do now? How do we move on? So it really depends, I guess, on whether I'm in a position where I'm ready for it, or perhaps I'm not ready for it. And maybe it's the person. Mark and I were just talking about a situation, and I've had this happen a number of times. There have been several people that I've known that had some money, and when they passed away, the vultures came out. And everybody and anybody shows up and so how do you deal with that? You know, how do you say who's right and who's wrong? When family members swoop in and say, well, this is what they really wanted when we know it's not. Or when wills are changed and how do you do? What's the correct, do you even get involved? That's like, what do you think? How do we deal with that? That is a difficult situation. When a son shows up and says, well, this is what my father really wanted and I'm the heir, kind of. Look at Prince. I still am stunned that that man did not have a will. As wealthy as he was, how do you not have a will? And so when he passed away, they're still dragging it on. And it's been, I don't know how long it's been since he's passed away. How long, does anybody know?
It's over a year.
It's been over a year that he's passed away. It's still not close. There's still, his ex-wife is involved and the cousin or the niece and manager, like people out of nowhere are showing up. All the illegitimate kids, that's my dad. I want a piece. So money's funny. Money makes people do funny things. But again, that's a very difficult situation. I would not want to be somebody in charge of Prince's estate right now. Like,
Remember John Denver's?
oh, that's another one. But
7 to 11 years before they got it settled.
But didn't he did have a will though, right?
No.
Oh, he didn't have a will either? That's good. And he had a wife in Australia and Amy, that's good. Anyway, so that could be easily handled. People do a will. Make sure your wills are done. But that's a good explanation of a difficult situation. When the person is gone and everyone else shows up and no one really knows what to do. A difficult situation could be in court when you're on a jury duty and you go into the jury room and then you have to debate. How many people have been on jury duty in here? Only 2 of us? Really? Huh? That's funny. So jury duty, wait, you'll get your turn. But in jury duty, typically you walk in there and no one really knows what to do. And it's kind of up to you, and then you all have to figure out who's going to be the foreman and what's the procedures and stuff. Now, I've done it twice already, and I was the foreman both times because it's like, let's go, people. I'm wasting my time here. You guys want? Yeah, maybe because I'm used to a red light kick, so it's
No,
easy.
I'm saying that's what it felt like with the 2 times I was in there.
It does, but that's a difficult situation. And then of course, when you're on the jury, it's, so one of the first one I did was an assault and battery charge and a deadly weapon, assault with a deadly weapon. And there was 2 charges that I don't recall what they were. I know one was the assault with a deadly weapon and another one was maybe breaking and entering, I don't remember. And it was breaking and entering. So we're in there, and it was a gentleman who didn't speak English, so he needed to have a translator. He was an illegal immigrant from Mexico, and he had broken into this woman's house and tried to kill her, or attack her. And so in the room, in the jury room, we had a woman who was, well, it's just because he's Mexican. That's the only reason why you're all saying guilty. So it's 11-1, and she clearly is not wanting to, she's not going to sway her vote. And we're all like, they have the gun, they've got the fingerprints, they've got his fingerprints on the glass door. He broke his head through the door, and the cops took pictures of the glass, and she said, oh, the cops planted that. You planted glass shards. We had the time to sit there and strategically place the glass shards and the cuts all on, yeah, she's just really, it was really unbelievable. And so that was a difficult situation because we know, it's like, you know, and then you got one person, no, not doing it no matter what. I am not. So what do? You make a hung jury? I mean, we've been here for 3-4 days and now it's going to cost more money. Thankfully, we finally convinced her, but then, so we went back into the room and we said, yes, we convinced him he was guilty, and then the judge said, okay, well, now we have to do the sentencing, and so they used this again, and then the lawyer says up and said, well, yes, he is guilty, but he was intoxicated. And I'm like, why didn't you say that the first time? We're saying this 3 days. You could have just said, yes, he's guilty, and we could have moved forward, but that's not our system. So then we go back in the room, all right, he says he's guilty, so what do we say for his sentencing? And now this is where I really felt the weight. It really was up to us on how long this kid is going to stay in jail. And I thought, wow, do I want to be the one responsible for putting him for life imprisonment? Or, I mean, it wasn't life. It was anywhere 3 to 5 maximum sentence. I don't remember the whole thing. And then that woman was like, I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay, this one we didn't have to be unanimous, so that's great. You just sign over there that you're not going to vote, and that's cool. But I remember feeling that weight, and that's a difficult decision. Somebody's life is in your hands right now. And being the foreman, you're the one who kind of guides and gets everyone together. Not that you're influencing them, but you're the one to get them to move. That can be quite difficult, especially when people don't want to move. Mm-hmm. So that's just an easy example of what it's like to be difficult. Any teacher can tell you. Being a teacher is very difficult with any of the students that are in the classroom. That can be difficult. Anybody who's driven on the highway can say that can be a difficult situation, especially when you have drivers who are not paying attention. And the big thing right now is the texting and not looking at what you're doing while you're driving. So we're surrounded with difficult situations on a daily basis. We really are surrounded. Depending on the amount of times that we've overcome difficult situations, that gives us our skill on whether or not we are able to handle it. So again, the idea of being balanced, physically balanced, emotionally balanced, and mentally balanced, and then looking at me and recognizing my inability to maintain my equilibrium or my emotional intelligence, and clearly focusing where my brain, my mind wants to go on this situation. Anybody who's ever dealt with somebody who is difficult, it usually goes to I'm right and you're wrong. And that's where it's a standoff. The South going and the North going Zax. I'm right and you're wrong. And there's no budging. We're not moving. So anybody who's ever gone to the gym, has anybody here been to a gym? I said gym. I was Jamba Juice. Anybody been to Jamba Juice? Anybody been to the gym? So we all know when you first go to the gym, is it easy? Well, finding my locker was easy. And changing my clothes, had lots of fun with that. Listening to the music, that was good too. But the weight machine, are you kidding me? You know, I'm going to start with 25 pounds. I used to do that. Knock it down to 5, because it's hard. And then the constant repetitions of that, or the one that I dislike the most is the leg kick one, and I'm not a fan of that one. Anyway, so after you do this for a while, it gets easier, right? Not the first week or second week, maybe a month. Then you can like increase the weight. So when we first start, difficult. But the more we do it, the easier it becomes. And then lo and behold, the wonderful thing, your trainer comes over and says, oh, we're gonna increase the weights. And then you start the whole cycle of being difficult all over again, until you finally get accustomed to that. Yoga was something very funny when I first started yoga. Loved my friend who took me with her. She owns yoga studios. I actually like going with her because she will adjust me gently. Some other yoga teachers yell at you. That's not the posture. And you don't really know what you're doing when you first do yoga. You gotta follow everybody because nobody really sits and says, this is the tree pose, and then here's the eagle. No one really tells you. They just call for the pose, and you watch and you think. And so I was grateful that I did have a friend that would walk up and adjust me as a teacher. She would come and adjust me so I'd know how to do the poses and the postures. Not that it made any good because I still would fall. Which is, I think yoga should make cushy mats on the floor instead of the wood floor. Who came up with wood floor yoga? I don't know about that one. Anyway, difficult. It was, so holding yoga postures is another difficult thing. I'm just going to come up with tons of difficult things for us. Anyway, through the repetition, this is how we overcome the difficulty. So difficult is a way for me to increase my capacity. That's really what it is. I increase my capacity. Every time I overcome an obstacle, I'm increasing my capacity. A difficult journey often leads us to a destination that we are extremely rewarded at. We're so happy we finally got there. Like I said, the one who hits the buzzer at the end of the ninja, woo! We're very happy that we made it. Those of you who've ever driven over to California to go to Disneyland, the drive with 2 children in the back of the car, but when you're finally there, it's happy. Everyone's happy we finally made it until you have to stand in line for 4 hours and then the ride closes. I don't think 4 hours. I think the longest we stood at Pirates of the Caribbean was 2.5 hours. We stood in line for 2.5 hours for what I didn't think was a very good ride. I liked the water part because I just kept pulling myself up, but it wasn't that. Anyway, we say we're very happy. We go over through the difficulties. As I said, anyone's ever driven to California with your kids in the car to Disneyland, it's a difficult ride, but when we finally there, we're very happy. Those of us who've, again, I said the workout, you define your muscles. A difficult diet, when you really decide to cut the carbs down and get rid of the sugar, the reward is good. But the journey is difficult, especially if you love chocolate. It's difficult to not have chocolate and say that you can't have sugar anymore. That's when you say things that you won't repeat on the air. But it's difficult. Here's another one, a difficult conversation. There's those of us who are afraid to have difficult conversations, but sometimes when we actually do have those difficult conversations, the reward is great. The relationship is closer. If you have to have a difficult conversation with your boss, sometimes the reward is greater. They're grateful that you brought certain items to their attention. I was going to make a joke, but I won't do about that one. So when we have a tendency to avoid difficulty, that's when we struggle. So why is it you think we avoid difficult situations? What is it about me that does not want to deal with difficult situations?
You don't want to.
We're afraid of what?
Of the outcome.
We're afraid of the outcome, okay.
We don't want to confront ourselves.
I don't want to confront myself, that's a good one.
I don't like hurting people, and generally, there's gonna be a loser that suffers some amount of hurt, and I know Jordan will lean down and say, yes, but this could be their greatest growth, and but I still don't like hurting somebody.
So we don't want to hurt anybody, that's a good reason. Why else?
Vulnerability.
We don't want to be vulnerable, absolutely, which we can end up being hurt on then, okay.
I also don't like the homework.
The homework?
Yeah, majority of the times that I'm gonna find that I'm gonna have to have a conversation with somebody, it's gonna be challenging. There's gonna be a certain amount of homework in bringing this stuff together to show them.
Preparation.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just, it's like there's so many other things I couldn't.
And you don't want to take the time to have to read the presentation of it.
Well, especially when it's like it's involved, you're supposed to be doing this with the company and you're having to do this.
So it takes us away from our tasks.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, that's good. What else? Anyone else why we don't want to deal with difficult?
Disappointment.
We could be faced with disappointment. What if it doesn't go the way we want it to go, or makes it worse?
I didn't do the work and I'm disappointed in myself.
You didn't do the work? Is that what you said? That you didn't do the work and then you end up being disappointed, okay?
Yeah, you don't want to be wrong.
I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
lose
sorry,
friends.
Mark doesn't wanna be wrong. What was that?
Don't wanna lose friends.
I don't wanna lose friends. I could definitely lose friends by having a difficult conversation.
For me, it's karma too. I don't know, right now I'm on the subject of vaccinations. I wanna convince my boyfriend that vaccinations are not good, but I don't want to do too much because maybe I'm getting into the karma thing. Maybe I'm not supposed to do that.
That's something we can't control, right? But if karma is true, how do I know this is the right interception or not? All right, that's good. That's a good one. I can't answer that one, but that's a good one. Any other reason why we avoid difficulties?
Yeah, they're just flat out aren't, well, for me, they're not fun. I recently learned there are people that find them fun, but for me, they're not fun.
They're not fun.
Yeah, that's speaking for me, I just realized that.
So I have one that's actually very simple. We haven't been taught how to deal with difficulties.
Yeah.
Ever since we're children, who takes care of the difficult things for us? Our parents do. We don't have to learn how to deal with difficulties. Somebody picks on us, our parents go to the school and we start the fight, and hey, you need to take care of that. And so we really aren't truly prepared. Now there are some parents that do a good job on preparing their children how to deal with difficult situations. I mentioned this in the classroom this weekend, and I'll say it again. Way back when Bill Clinton was running for president, him and Hillary were being interviewed, and I don't remember who the interview was. I don't. Anyway, she asked them the question that she had heard that they were tormenting Chelsea as a teenager. And the way they explained it, Hillary and Bill said, listen, we're in the political life. We know you're going to get attacked. We know that they're going to attack us personally. We want her prepared. We don't want her to feel devastated and struck down if somebody says something bad about her. So they literally were trying to give her a thick skin, is what they said, so that she wouldn't be offended by any negative connotation or any negative attack on her. And I actually think that was very wise for a political family to recognize that their children are going to be targeted to prepare their children. I think that's a very wise choice. Wouldn't that be great if we did that as adults, to actually prepare our children? I can't tell you how many times I've encountered people that do not teach their children how to do a balance a checkbook, how to even keep a bank account, how to find the value of money, that just because you want a $150 pair of jeans doesn't mean you should buy a $150 pair of jeans when you're 10 years old and you're going to grow out of them in 6 months anyway. That would be something good to teach our children. That you don't need to have the latest and greatest iPhone. That would be good to teach our children. Allowances, I know several people that give allowances to their kids, but the kids don't do anything. They just get money once a week and the kids aren't doing it. That's not an allowance. That's just giving money for free. I've had some clients talk about that. They're like, they debate with their spouse because the spouse doesn't want them to go without, but we don't want the kids to work so hard because they have so much homework. What? So, unfortunately, if we don't prepare our children, we are not preparing them to handle difficult situations. I liked when the year 2000 was going to happen. Remember when there was going to be the big crash, the planes are going to fall out of the air, and well, there was a little surge of people preparing. So they got extra food and extra water and some emergency supplies and batteries and so on and so forth. I actually don't think that's a bad idea. You never really know what's going to, now do you need to have 2 years worth? I don't know about that, but I like the idea of being prepared. If we can prepare ourselves when we get up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we wash our face, take a shower, eat something, that's all preparation for the day. Why can't we prepare ourselves for difficult times as well? That's what a budget's for. When you have the budget, you put the money aside for the emergency funds. I don't know too many people that do that nowadays, or are teaching their children to do that nowadays. So that's all finances, I'm talking about that, but also about how do you deal with confrontive situations. How do we teach our children to not be confrontive when someone's combative towards us? We teach them how to throw a right hook, but we don't teach them how to find compassion or understanding. Maybe this bully right now is being bullied at home, or maybe he's feeling insecure or threatened. So we don't really teach that. What we teach is defense. Now, I'm all about defense. If somebody attacks you, yes, it's appropriate to defend yourself to a point, not to injure just to incapacitate the person so they can't hurt you anymore, that's fine, you know. Lock them down, wait for somebody to come and rescue, or, you know, the authorities, whatever, to come by. But not to start a fight. I don't believe that you should start a fight. I'm completely against starting the fights, but we should be prepared in case it happens. There should always be some form of preparation when it comes to play. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're not, we don't like to deal with difficulties, because we're not prepared. Now, as I said, I wanted to talk about the 4 agreements. These 4 agreements can help us prepare, not just, it's not designed, the book actually says a practical guide to personal freedom, but I think that these 4 things can help us prepare to deal with difficult situations. If we can actually pass this on to our children or put it into our lives, this would be very beneficial to discover inner strength. That's what we're looking for, inner strength. Now, the first one of this, as I said, this was written in 1997. It's called the 4 Agreements. So the first one is be impeccable with your word. He says, speak with integrity, say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in direction of truth and love. Now, I think that's quite powerful. What if the only words I spoke were truthful and geared towards love? If I did that, I wouldn't find myself in a combative situation. If someone's being difficult to me and I'm being truthful and with love, how are they going to fight me? It's if you don't add fuel to the fire will eventually smolder down to just burning embers. If you don't add it, most of us get involved when there's, well, they said this and that's not true. That's the big thing. That's not true. So how do we determine to speak my truth when everyone has a different truth? So seeing this in the political realm, that's not true, well that's not true, and then arguing over what's true is so fluid. If we would remove it and think everybody has a form of truth, then why would we argue over it? Well, that's true for you. Why isn't anybody saying that? It's true for you, but it's not true for me. If we could settle on that, then there wouldn't be fighting. That's what's true for you, that's great. That's true for you.
If the other person settles on that.
But we don't need to get them to settle on it. Because what is it really about? Is the difficulty in them or is the difficulty in me? If the difficulty's in me and I can settle on that's true for them, then I don't need to say anything anymore. Let them rant and rave and thank them for their point of view, and I can walk away.
And if it's causing harm.
Well, if it's causing harm, remember I said it's okay to defend ourselves and protect ourselves,
Okay.
not to injure them though. So
Okay.
I can protect, but not injure. So if someone's saying something, if someone's literally just saying something and it's harmful in words, then I don't take that personal. But if they're actually physically doing something, naturally defending ourselves, protecting would be appropriate to do. But anyway, so the first one, be impeccable with our words, speaking with integrity, say only what you mean, only what you mean. Now with this can help us if I think about the word integrity. Integrity, I did look this up, integrity means congruent, has to deal a lot with morals and ethics. So if I have a morality that says to cause no harm, and I'm speaking with integrity, that means my words would intentionally not cause harm. I would find a way to find peace. That's what integrity would be for me. Now, the many years in the classroom that I've done, 27 somewhat years now, we've dealt with combative people. Those of you who are staff, you know we've had difficult people and combative people. I've been in situations where fights have broken out in the classroom. And to yell and jump in the midst of that is just going to increase that. Now, thankfully, we haven't had that happen in many years, but I have had a chair thrown at the board. I've had instances where screaming and yelling and hands are, so we've had those happen. So that's where I've learned a bit about dealing with difficult people, how to calm a situation down quickly instead of letting it escalate, how to be able to walk in and have an authoritative voice, but not a threatening voice, to have a voice of shock to capture their attention, but not to injure them. That's necessary. At times, that's been necessary to do. Now, that takes a great deal of strength. I'm not touting myself. I've watched other facilitators do this with ease and grace. They just walk in and you just go, how did you do that? But they had the ability to do that. And they also had the ability to cause the upset. Those of you who know what I'm talking about, there's certain activities that just make the group just go nuts. In Omega 2, we just did an Omega 2 this weekend, and I actually did, on one of the activities, I did increase my energy, let's say, and it did cause a bit of upset. However, it was with intention. It was not with intention to harm, it was intention to shock and capture attention, to break a pattern that was already in play that could be harmful. So, again, impeccability with my word, that's the first one. The second one, this is the most, I love this one, don't take anything personal. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality and their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and the actions of others, you will not be a victim of needless suffering. So not take anything personal. Not take anything personal. No matter what anybody says to you, no matter what they do, you don't take it personal. It's about them. So I had this instant where I had somebody who screamed at me and said they would never work with me because I'm too demanding, critical, and controlling. So at first, I was extremely defensive. We were already in the midst of an upset, so just escalating voices. And you know when you're angry, you say things you don't mean, and you act in a way that you don't want to act. I've heard people say horrible things when I've worked with couples, things that people say to each other. I just am shocked. But anyway, in this situation, I walked away, I took a couple of deep breaths, and I just grounded myself, and I remembered, okay, this is not about me. This is about wanting to be right, we're difficult, we're in a situation, who's going to be right, who's going to focus. I don't need to be right, and it's fine, it's okay, and I can just relax, and I did. I calmed myself down there, and remembered that it's the attack. The attack is somebody had once said, an attack is a cry for help. I don't remember who said that, but I know I've heard this before. An attack is a cry for help. So when somebody's raising their voice and screaming, it's a cry for help. There's something else going on inside of them. In the years that I've worked with teen programs, and I've had the kids scream and yell at me and get angry, and I know it's because there's something else going on in their house, that there's some other situation that's occurred and they're reacting. One of the most beautiful experiences I ever had at a teen program, I had about 25 kids. We were up in Prescott, and we were doing a high ropes course. So a high ropes course is, there's a course, literally, off the ground, 20 feet in the trees. And there's different activities that you can do. It's all roped. You're repelled and you're locked in, but it's the height that really gets the kids. Anyway, so we had this group of people, group of kids, and this one teenager, I happened to be sitting, and this one teenager was walking by, picked up a horseshoe and threw it at another girl. Missed her head by that much. Now that caught my attention. Now naturally, I'm in charge to make sure nobody gets hurt, so I immediately stood up and screamed as loud as I could the kid's name and called him to me and said, that is absolutely unacceptable. He started yelling back at me saying she pushed him. And so it's a he said, she said thing, right? Well, this kid was already agitated. He had already been starting fights and already been upsetting people. Now I knew something that nobody else there knew. Before he got on the bus, his aunt pulled me aside and told me the story. He was very close to his mother. His mother suffered from cancer for 2 years. Him and his brother were there taking care of his mother. His father couldn't deal with it, so he was never home. And so when the mom finally died, with the kids there, she died. The father, within a matter of weeks, was remarried to another woman. The other woman did not like him and said, get rid of him. I will keep one of your children, but not both. So the father took this kid and sent it off to his sister-in-law, which is the mom's sister. So now, here's this kid, loses his mother, who he was very close to, and he's 12, maybe, 13, I think, at this time. Then loses his father. His father says, I don't want you. And then he loses his brother, because he's not allowed to have any contact with anyone because he's such a handful. And so here's this aunt now, she comes up and says he's in fights all the time, he's not focusing in school anymore, they're gonna kick him out, I don't know what to do. And he's aggressive and angry with her because she looks like his mother. So he's aggressive and angry with her. So I know all of this is going on inside, but the other kids don't. So we so he throws the horseshoe and I say, all right guys, let's it. Group meeting, everyone together, so he won't even join with the kids. He takes his chair and goes all the way to the front by the door. I want to go home! I hate you! I hate everybody! I want to go home! He's ranting and raving and faces the wall and puts his back to us. And so then the kids are like, we hate you too, we want you to go home. And it's just like, so I let them rant for a while, and then I finally asked the question, why do you think he's acting this way? I don't care, let him go. Well, do you really not care? And what happens when you get angry? I mean, have you ever been this angry before? Well, why did you get this angry? So we started talking a little bit time and time, and this one little girl went up to him and said, why are you angry? I don't care, go away, I hate you. It was really hard not to laugh at some of the situations, but anyway, he was obviously quite upset. And so we just kept talking, and then the kids started understanding what pushes people's buttons, and obviously him throwing a horseshoe really isn't the issue. There must be something else going on. And they wanted to know, like, can we be your friend? Like, maybe he doesn't have any friends. And so we did. We talked and talked and talked, and finally the kids unanimously voted for him to stay. He wasn't screaming anymore, and he wasn't saying he wanted to leave. Like, I could tell he was listening, but he still wouldn't turn around. So I'm like, does anybody want me to take him back home, or do you want, no, we want him to stay, we want him to stay. We want him to be part of this group. And so they all raised their hands, and so I went over to him and I said, listen, if you want to leave, that's great, but I want you to turn around right now, and I want you to see this. Really, you have to see this. I didn't force them. This is them raising their hands saying they want you here. He very sheepishly turned around, and you could see it in his face. It was so beautiful, because it was like, for the first time, he felt like somebody wanted him. I'm gonna cry. I am crying. But it was the first time somebody wanted this kid. And it was like, he sat there, and he kind of did one of those, and then turned around, and then kind of did one of those, and I knew it was time for a break, because I knew he wouldn't approach them, so I said, okay, let's go take a break, time for dinner, blah, blah, blah. And I had all the staff go, and I just let the kids stay in the room with him. And when we went to dinner, it was like a totally different kid. He had the big smile on, he's carrying trays, and it was really funny. When I went to sit down at the table, he literally pushed two other kids out of the way so he could sit next to me. I'm like, yes, you can have that seat today. We'll trade off. And he became such a beautiful kid. He'd help all the other kids. He had such a big smile on his face. He really was a beautiful kid. I really liked him a lot. It was a great transition to watch dealing with somebody who was so difficult and not take it personal. Not take it personal that he's screaming at me saying he hates me. Because I know he doesn't. He hates his life. He hates what's happening. So when we came back from the trip, he came over and gave me a big, huge hug. He saw his aunt, gave her a big hug. She came over, she was like, what did you do? I'm like, well, you told me to fix him, as a joke. Later on, she emailed me and contacted me, straight A student, just completely changed. Really just changed his life. And I think he stayed in touch with some of the kids too from the weekend as well. Those are stories I love. But again, it's really about not taking it personal. Had he screamed and said, I hate you, and I yelled back, I hate you too, we wouldn't have had an event at all. If the kids, if I would have let them stay in their anger, they would have walked away hating this kid. But and I never disclosed anything, I never told them what happened. I knew, and I was the only one who knew. I don't even think my staff knew. I just let it be, and they worked it out. By not taking it personal, you are able to overcome a difficulty. It's not going to be easy, naturally. You're going to deal with someone screaming at you. You just don't take it personal. You recognize that beneath that, there's something else going on. So that's not taking it personal. That's how we deal with that. The next one is don't make assumptions. It's close to not taking anything personal. By not making assumptions, what we do is we find the courage to ask questions and to express what we really want. Communicate with others as clearly as possible to avoid misunderstanding, sadness, and drama. With this one agreement, he says, you can completely transform your life. So making assumptions, this is really funny. To not make assumptions requires confidence. We make assumptions because we're feeling insecure. Oh, that person looked at me because they don't like me. What's wrong with them? Oh, and we build a story in our head when it may not be true. I emailed them 3 days and they haven't responded back. What's wrong? Nothing. They might have been busy. But we build it in our head. And then here's the dangerous thing. We build it in our head and then we suffer as if it's actually true. Oh, they hate me. And I'm suffering because we think they hate me. When really, I mean, if anybody's ever sent me an email, you know, I read them maybe once a week, and I'll get back to you maybe in another week. I mean, it's It's not a priority for me. My husband gets a little agitated with me, I know sometimes, because I'm not more on top of my email than I should be. But I just know that's how anyway, you don't take it personal. And I'm sorry, you don't make the assumptions. George told that one really funny story, which I will tell here, about when he first got married. It's the second time. When he first got married for his second time. When he got married second time. And the first time his wife didn't come home on time. So this is before cell phones. Just put the picture out here. It's before cell phones. This is back in the 70s when it was very chivalrous for the man to be the one to bring home the bacon and take care of the woman and stuff. So he gets home, she's not there. He's okay. 5 minutes go by, something happened. She's in the hospital. So now he's panicking. She's in the hospital, something happened. Another 10 minutes go by, she's having an affair. So he starts creating all of these scenarios, and 45 minutes go by, and he is suffering. He's packed, ready to get out of the house, you know, something traumatic. And then she finally comes in, and what ended up happening is she got a flat tire. And she just needed someone to help her to change the tire because she couldn't change the tire. And what he discovered is, by making all of these assumptions, he suffered as if she actually was cheating, she actually was on her deathbed in the hospital, waiting for someone to come and claim her body, or that she left him and drained the bank account and she was gone. He suffered as if it actually happened, and never did. So when we make assumptions, we're up in our mind, and we're creating a reality that does not exist. So it's an illusion. And we're like exasperated by it, when we're consumed by it. I love that story that he used to tell about that. One of the things that I love about this one is William and Ernest Henley, the guy who wrote Invictus. My favorite line: "It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the captain of my fate. I am the master of my soul." So it doesn't matter. I just don't make the assumptions. I just breathe and think, okay, what do I have to go through here? So we have to separate fact from fiction. We have to separate real from illusion, sane from insane. That's what we really have to do for not making assumptions. And the last one that he says, always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different from you, it will be different when you are healthy as opposed to when you are sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. So by doing my best, why is this important? When I'm dealing with a difficult person, remember that you're better than them. Better than their actions, please forgive me. Better than their actions of antagonistic. We're better than that. We don't need to get down in the ring and fight and duel it out, especially because we know that. We know we have control of our thinking. We know we can have control of our emotions, so I don't need to do that. So when I remember to do my best, what is my best? Well, my best is to be the best that I can be. When I think about being my best, I have an image that I call forward. Being my best, I think about pure love and pure light. That's what I think would be the best. And I know this is a goofy picture, but I see like angels, white angels with the wings, you know, that's the angels I grew up with. So I see that, and I think that's the best. And if God is in me, like that's what they say, everyone has God within them, then the best of me would to be like God, wouldn't it? And would God be someone who gets in there and starts screaming and yelling at other people? I don't think so. I'm certain, I don't think that would be the way it would be. I think we're taught compassion, love, patience, and understanding. So the best of me would be to look for compassion, love, patience, and understanding. To not get down and, oh, just today. You know, if you've ever been on a diet, well, let me have the break day today. I'm gonna stuff my face with as much as I want, and then you take like another week to recover from giving your body all the stuff that you hadn't had in ever, however long it may be. So it's always to be my best. Torquem Saraderio talked about this a great deal too. He has 12 practical rules, and his number one is always do your best. Number one, always be your best. Always do your best at everything that we do. It doesn't mean perfection. It means being my best. And as Don Miguel Ruiz says here, it will be different depending on the day. If you're feeling strong, your best is going to be great. If you're not feeling strong, your best might just be where it is that day. Not to judge ourselves. Oh, how come I couldn't be good yesterday? Or how come I didn't do? Not judging ourselves. That's going to take ourselves down. Be accepting. This is what I'm capable of doing today. This is also a difficult thing for us to do as well. when somebody has an expectation on us and I'm not following through, for me to come up to them and say, listen, this is what I'm capable of right now. That's hard, because we want them to be happy. We want to please them. We don't want them to be upset. So it can be difficult for us to speak truthfully if I'm feeling insecure. But if I have a sense of security and I believe the person loves me, let's say it's somebody you love, you have an opportunity to walk up to them and say, you know what, I'm just not feeling good right now and I need to renegotiate, or I need to change this around. And are you willing to work with me on that? Instead of commanding. You don't walk up and say, this is the way it's going to be now. Now we're going to go. It's always a conversation. Those of you who've been in relationships, I'm hoping most of you understand this. A relationship doesn't go the way you want it to go all the time. And in relationships, we have a tendency to want it to go the way I want it to go all the time. So imagine two people wanting to go all the way every time, wanting it their way. Not going to happen. Relationships are a great opportunity for us to help tone our skills, to help us learn it doesn't always have to be our way. You know, we've heard the philosophy, pick your battles. I don't like to use the idea that in a relationship it's a battlefield, but there are times when you do. You have to pick your battles. Does it really matter where you go to dinner? Well, if you're really specifically wanting a specific meal, yeah. But if you're just hungry, no, it really doesn't matter. Now, things are quite different the higher the consequences, like buying a house. Yeah, having your input is necessary, but you're not going to get exactly what you want because the other person has an expectation if they want in our house. So I have to laugh. We have funny in our house. I love wood floors. My husband likes tile. I don't like tile. I love wood floors, and I really don't like tile. I would prefer carpet over tile. He loves tile. So that's a tremendous thing. How do you get over, that's flooring, and once it's down, it's down. You can't be like this week tile, next week floors. It's not like, so that's something you have to learn how to compromise on. When it comes to the paint colors on the wall, another compromise. So when I had the kids, we were painting their rooms, and I said to them, oh, is that the wind again? Awesome. Yeah, we had this happen all weekend. The wind and the stuff from the trees was landing on the ceiling. It was really cool. Anyway, painting the rooms for the kids, I said to them, okay guys, I'll let you guys choose your paint. And I was a little trepidatious. I was afraid they're going to pick black or something. And I said, well, here's what, so my son did pick a very, very dark blue. I said, no, I know I said you could pick your paint, but that's too dark. I'll put that on one wall, and you could pick a different color for the other. And he did, and I let him pick the wall. Well, I don't particularly like it, but it's his room, and it's his, oh, go ahead. My daughter, she picked this, like a brown, a light brown kind of thing for the whole room. And I'm like, it looks like you live inside a cardboard box, but okay, if that's what you want, that's what we'll do. Now, they're rooms in the house, but it's their room, so we compromise on that. Hello? I'm compromising on the wind. So that's what I mean when you're in a relationship, even with your children or your mom or your dad or your spouses, that we compromise. We don't have to have it our way. We have to recognize that everyone has their own taste and opinions. When it comes to food, that's another one. What do you want for dinner? And then you're cooking the food, and every person in the house wants something different. Then you say, no, I'm only making one meal. So we're going to work on that everyone enjoys one thing that we're doing, but I'm not going to make 4 different meals. That would be insane. Or, of course, I cook for me and my husband cooks for his kids. Just kidding.
I'm going to peek out the door just because I've got a friend sitting in my car.
I don't think it's rain. I really think it's just the wind. And it's the stuff from the trees and the wind. Okay. Anyway, that was the idea of always doing your best. So when you always do your best, it doesn't mean you always get your way. You always do your best to bring peace. That's the idea, that you always do your best to bring peace. Now, if I can summarize all this, then naturally I would say, remember, when dealing with a difficult person, the first thing we do is recognize the difficulty lies within me. How am I able to deal with that individual? Rising above my emotions and learning to control my thinking. How do I want to manifest this? And then, of course, the 4 things that we talked about are being impeccable with my word, do not take anything personal, do not make assumptions, and always do my best. Does this make sense to you? Sound like something that would be easy to do?
He also wrote a book called The Fifth Agreement. Be skeptical.
I do remember that one, and I didn't remember what it was called, but I didn't remember what it was.
Always be skeptical.
Always be skeptical, that's funny. Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to say from my own experience that there are situations we can run away from, and people we can run away from, like clients, and there are people like ex-husbands that I share custody with, who were the abusers, and I have to deal with it well, and don't pay child support, and so, you know, that was a big challenge for me. It's been years, and it got to the point that we are peaceful.
Yes.
You know? And even though he was the abuser, he did very bad things, crazy. I went through hell and back. And right now, I must say, wow, what a journey. And he changed his life too. He turned around, he's more responsible, I think he's winning in his life right now. He believed in himself, just like that little boy that was left alone, and he didn't know what to do. He was lost. I think my ex-husband was the same way. He was just lost. He was in so much pain. He didn't even know what to do. He started harming everyone around him. But now he knows.
So that's a great example. So you went through the difficult journey, and now you're at the reward of that. Would you say it was worth it?
You know, I believe in destiny, and I believe in karma. And he was the best teacher. And right now, my boyfriend is the greatest guy. He's amazing, and he's very peaceful with him too. And we're gonna have a baby, and he congratulated us on that.
That's
So
great.
it's like, wow, you know, where I've been, and I could have hated him for the rest of my life. I could say all the guys are bad, all the men are the worst thing in the world. I don't want to be married. I don't want to be with anyone. Right? I could say that, but I still have belief, and I still believe in the good and the love, the soul, other than the ego.
So you would say that you were being your best when you were
Right.
dealing with
Every
it.
time I tried my best.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's a really good story. I'm glad to hear that. And congratulations. Anyone else? Well, excellent. Thank you, everybody on Facebook who joined us. Have a good evening, and we will see you next Monday night on May, whatever the date is. Bye. See ya.